Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, a show that takes a look at society's expectations and rejects the ones we don't see it for, all from the perspective of three black queer best friends. I'm one of your hosts, Tony, and today, Jordan, Damon, and I are discussing body, yaddy, yaddy, yaddy. How has our outlook on body image changed since Skinny Legends Only Part 1? Is our desire for the perfect body driven by health or vanity? This is Skinny Legends Only Part 2. Skinny Legends Only Part 2. All right, you guys.
And we're back.
So,
leave me out of it.
Last season, we had some very controversial topics. And one in particular was our Skinny Legends Only episode.
Yes, very
with
polarizing.
Featured guest Aaron Randall, our Howard brother. And we're going to revisit the conversation today and give a little perspective. But before we go there, because we're going to go there again,
And again.
I want us to play a little game. And I'm just going to ask you guys a few questions. So, starting with, name your biggest insecurity that you have about your body.
Ooh.
Jordan.
Ooh. What? Why are we starting with me?
Because
I haven't had a chance to think.
I forgot you have no insecurities.
She had that one she was texting us about yesterday, but we're not going to bring that up.
You know what? That's beyond the service.
You better answer quick before I put you out there.
Body and like what?
Biggest insecurity that you have. It doesn't have to be anything about yourself. But since it's a body image episode we're talking about, then
She may not have none, child.
listen, she's perfect. I get it.
I don't.
I don't have the power.
Let's give him a moment to think.
Okay, yeah.
Jordan, Damon.
I've always been super insecure about like my lower stomach, which is
Yeah.
weird because I wear a lot of crop tops. But I just go with it. But yeah, I always never liked it, hated it.
Yeah. For Jordan, have you decided, or are you
No,
still
she's
over
still
there?
thinking.
Perfect Patty.
I'm not perfect. I don't
Okay, he's not.
know.
Okay, well, for me, this is not necessarily like, it has to do with image, but like for me, it's always been my eyes. I've always had bad allergies as a kid, always rubbing my eyes, always having people say, you look like you're high, like you've been smoking.
You do be looking a little high all
and then I have like dark circles that I just wish I could get rid of, but it's kind of like, it's there. And I like to say that they're bedroom eyes.
Oh, I didn't know that body image
Well,
insecurities also
I
apply to the face.
I said we could
That's
do
a part of your
insecurity.
body.
It's
I
part
thought
of,
we were just talking
it's
about
image.
like, the body. I don't know.
No, the image.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Her head not on her body.
It's not on her body.
I've never been a fan of my nose.
Okay, so good. So that's something.
Yeah.
You found, I'm glad we got there.
Yeah.
Goodness. All right, let's just move on. So, would you say that you're more health conscious or body conscious? Like, are you more concerned about the things that are going into your body, and I'm talking about food, or are you more concerned with like, how you actually look? So, the outside versus the inside. Damon?
Probably health. Like I eat pretty healthy throughout the week if I'm cooking. Like I don't really cook crazy things.
Yeah.
Try and drink a lot of water, child. I think it always makes me feel better.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty straightforward there.
What about you, Jordan?
Probably the vanity of it. I think I eat pretty healthy, so like it's not really top of mind. It's not really like a concern. Like I just eat the way that I eat. So like what's on my mind usually is like
How you look.
how I look.
I kind of am similar to that because I like to be able to eat whatever I want to eat, but I'm also not always eating trash. So I'm not as health conscious. I'm just like, I don't love trash, so I'm more on the vanity side a little bit. But what's your favorite body part on someone else? All right, Jordan, we can go to you first on that. That's an easy one.
Because now we're talking about
Someone else.
Well, we include the face.
Yeah.
So like,
Girl, it ain't the face.
I love the face. No, I do. That's my favorite part.
Is it?
It is.
Interesting.
Okay. I really like really, really beautiful teeth.
Okay.
That's
I
true.
do.
She's telling the absolute
I
truth.
do.
Yeah, because we're not going to talk about it now, but
What?
the teeth that you want,
Oh, the teeth I'm
They're
going to buy?
done.
they're done.
They're
The
done.
teeth I'm going to buy later in my life?
Yeah.
So I love people with fake teeth.
What
I
about?
don't love
with,
people
with bleached veneers.
No. Implants, not veneers.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, what natural body part do you actually like on people?
Beautiful teeth.
Beautiful teeth. Beautiful gowns.
Ciao.
Damon, what about you?
I like a good chest.
Ooh, all right now. For me, I think I love nice legs is really
Yeah.
can take me to a place. You know?
We better could take it to a place.
Yes. So as it pertains to vacation, would you rather go on a strict keto or juicing diet, or would you rather work out and go hard in the paint for a couple weeks at the gym before you leave? Which one, Jordan? You want to
So
go on
the,
that?
the options are crash diet or crash exercise?
Yeah.
Crash exercise.
Crash exercise. Okay.
Yeah.
Damon?
Put me on a diet.
Put you on a
Yeah,
diet?
You're more of a diet girl.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I
you
don't-
like, I'm going to drink this juice for the next
but
2
the
weeks.
thing is, I don't eat, so that's easier for me. Like the difference would mean what for like.
Remember when your mom called you and you were telling her that you was eating like a lentil soup for dinner? She was like, I assume that's it.
Okay.
Leading up to Brazil.
Going over there like, Damon, what are you eating? Oh, just some leafy greens. No.
I make a very delicious
Not
vegan
enough,
lentil
baby.
kale
Now-
and quinoa soup.
And finally, on a scale of 1
Wait,
to...
no. You have to answer that.
I do?
Yes.
I do. Me?
I think I'm gonna do the crash exercise, and that's easier for me to maintain. Is like I can crash exercise versus like doing a whole crash diet or keep like that stuff just seems like impossible. People do it, but it's not for me. So, lastly, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is aesthetic to you personally, for yourself, and secondly, to the person that you might be dating? On a scale of 1 to 5, what do you rank aesthetic personally and with the person that you're dating? Jordan.
5'5".
Oh, perfect. Patty.
No, I'm not saying it has to be perfect. I'm just saying like I've been telling you guys for years. I'm a very visual person. I like what I see, both in the mirror and directly in front of me.
All right. I love the honesty. Damon.
Yeah, I like to look at nice things, and
Yeah.
I like to look at myself and feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
So what number?
So what number?
What's 5? Should I go with 5?
Okay, for both.
Sure.
So for me, it's not necessarily a perfect 5-5 because I have to also be able to like if I want a 5 from someone else, I got to be that 5 too. So I'm gonna take it
Baby, I'm
down.
always the 5.
Huh?
I'm always the 5.
Listen,
All right now,
listen.
they're gearing up.
You have no insecurities either, I see. But no, for me, I'm gonna say like a 3.5, 4, a strong 3.5, 4. Now that's strong. We're talking about creme de la creme, and that's for both parties involved.
Okay.
All right, I'm done with my questions.
Oh. I guess-
Cause you bitches.
Okay. All right. So let's start kind of, I guess, where we picked up. So we're revisiting the topic, obviously, focused on body image and perception of how we see ourselves. And speaking specifically to the last time we did this with varying reactions and responses, what do you guys feel like we got right versus what are the areas where you feel like we may have missed the mark a bit? Jordan, let's start with you because Tony's been talking so damn much.
Yeah, child. Let somebody else do some work around here.
I think that what we did right was I think that we all were very honest about how we contribute to fat phobia, and we all gave solid examples of how we contribute to that. And I think that was something that was absolutely necessary for that episode to give it the substantial importance that it needed. And I think that in terms of what we missed the mark on, I don't. I think it was a 5 out of 5. I think we hit it out the park.
Perfect, Patty.
Everything's a 5 out of 5 for me.
Tony.
So people had a lot to say last time
They
about
did?
Skinny Legends Only. People had so much to say, so much so that for the first time ever, I got on Instagram Live with our guest to discuss some of that feedback because it was so polarizing.
Child, people had so much to say that I still have never watched the Instagram live.
Oh my God.
By the time we got to it, I was like, I can't talk about this episode no more.
It was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And that was maybe 36 hours after it came out.
It was intense, but it was fun, and it was necessary to continue having that conversation. But I think that we probably could have been a little bit more nuanced and talked specifically about fat phobia and let that have been the theme for the entire episode, as opposed to bringing in body image, because they are different things. And we could have challenged, I guess, Aaron, our guest, a little bit more, and poked holes in certain areas, but not in a like gotcha kind of way, but more so in a way that was more representative of other viewpoints or opposing viewpoints from a holistically, you know what I'm saying? However, it was a specific voice that was speaking, and that was someone telling us their own story. So there was a lot of criticism from folks that probably necessarily don't walk in those shoes.
Yeah. I think
Damon?
Tony, we're kind of in the same place where I thought we conflated almost two ideas that weren't necessarily the same. I think body image is something universal. I think the experience living with fat in a society that buys into fat phobia is a specific experience to a group of people. Mm-hmm. And I think that conflation was triggering to some of our followers. And I think as far as how we handle guests and how we talk to people in the same way we speak to each other, mm-hmm. I think that the three of us, like, it's not necessarily a merry-go-round of ideas. I think we pipe up and engage one another and press one another on things that we say that we didn't necessarily do in this scenario. And I think, I think there was like some aversion to doing it based on like how we thought people would perceive us and so on. So what do you think?
Because we felt like we needed to have a guest in order to have that conversation to start, which I think was still smart.
I still stand by that. I think that we did need a guest.
Yeah.
I don't. Not that I didn't enjoy talking to Aaron. And like, I think that if we were to do an episode about if we were doing an episode about fat phobia, yes, like I think that was a dialogue that needs to be engaged. Our initial intent was purely to do an episode around body image, and I think that is something that, like we're doing now, like we can discuss because we all have bodies of varying degrees that we can talk about. Maybe the insecurities we do or don't,
right? But
have.
but I see what you're saying. I'm like, bodies of varying degrees. Like for other people, they look at us and because they think that we all have a more desirable body, like that's probably what the trepidation was. Yeah. And why we wanted to have just other representation in someone else who could actually speak from a place of knowing from somewhere that none of us have ever experienced. So
what do you think? Maybe I would say that kind of leads into the biggest lesson around our previous conversation.
Okay. So for me, the biggest lesson, and it actually came from the live that we did afterwards, was that you can't critique a trauma that you haven't experienced. I thought that was such a gem, because a lot of times people have their opinions and it's like, well, have you experienced this firsthand? Doesn't mean that people won't have opinions on things that they haven't experienced, but just giving you some perspective and letting that sit there. I think there was a lot of learning and unlearning to do as it pertains to body image, conversations around body image and fat phobia. But it's all a part of this experience of life. Like, I think we're constantly learning and constantly trying to get better, and mistakes are going to be made. But I think as long as the effort is there to do better, I personally feel like I'm going to be fine, because I think that having these conversations is part of doing the work. Jordan, what do you think?
I think the part that resonated with me the most was when Aaron sort of gave us some examples in which fat people feel anxiety in everyday life. Mm-hmm. And I think that those really resonated with me. He gave an example of the anxiety that some fat people feel when they're going into a movie theater after it's already started, and having to walk through a row to get to their seat, and what that anxiety is, or being out of breath for whatever reason. Maybe you're on a hike, but like people's thoughts of you being a person of larger weight out of breath. What does that say about you?
Yeah.
And for me, it resonated because It's a small thing, but it made me think about all the ways in which I sort of adjust my behavior based on the environment that I'm in. That other people, like, as being like a queer person, like I go into certain environments and I'm just like, okay, hold on, like maybe I need to like, queer, like tone it down a little, butch it up, tone it down a little bit. And I think in that moment is when I was just like, I don't think I really ever gave that level of thought to that,
Right.
And how how pervasive it is, and how how it affects people in a lot of different ways, a lot of environments and times. So that was something that resonated with me the most.
Okay, Damon?
I think beyond the specific topic, I really held on to the idea that we can. For me, it was a learning lesson around what we can do on our platform and in our podcast.
Yeah.
I think that it was...
Or just in our daily lives.
Yeah, or not even that. But what I mean is that I think that it forced us into a space of questioning how nuanced and specific we can be around topics without fear of offending. And I think as we've come into this season, like there are topics where we're like, oh, well, is that offensive if we are not necessarily of what people assume is a certain community and so on. And I think it's for the work that we've been doing, there's nuance in how you should talk about, discuss, how you can approach things with being respectful, but also still talking about your lived experience in a way that is true.
Yeah. Right. So that's the thing. We're willing to do the work because you have to be willing to do the work to have a nuanced conversation without representation.
Yeah. And I think we felt afraid at times of like, oh, well, how are people going to view the three of them discussing bodies?
Oh, completely agree.
Yeah. And I think in retrospect, that was one of...
We had a whole argument.
We had a whole argument about it. But seriously, it was one of
we can't do that episode.
It definitely... but seriously, like it was one of the things that... It's one of the few things that have happened over the course of us doing this where, like, I regret making a decision.
Yeah.
Because I think that, God willing, we're smart enough or, like, have enough care and compassion for people that we can find ways to talk about topics and saying, like, fuck what people think about it. And I think that's the thing that that doing the work to be nuanced and to... Because there is... I don't care what people fucking have to say outside of the three of us. There is definite nuance between our three bodies, how we view ourselves, the type, even when we talk about people outside, the types of men we attract, the type of men we're attracted to, whatever combination of experiences you want to attribute to a body and to our three lives, they exist.
Yeah.
And I think, in retrospect, I just wish we had said, like, we're doing an episode about fatphobia, because that's what it was. That's what it should have been. But that, I don't know. So anyway, moving out of the past into the present, into the future. What is the current motivation for your specific either workout plan, dieting, etc.? Is it health or vanity? Maybe start with Jordan, because I think she's alluded to her thoughts there already.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Let me hold on, Jordan. Hold on. Before you answer,
let me
pull out your mirror.
First of all...
I brought your mirror.
We brought your mirror, Jordan.
Shut up.
We brought your body length mirror.
We set up your vanity over here.
No.
Just to make sure that nothing's out of place.
I'm hot.
It is a little warm, but do not turn the air on, please. It gets too cold.
I want
too
to take
quick.
my jacket off now because I have a wife beater on. We had a
You are dressed for spring and fall and summer.
We had a past on earlier, so I had to put my prayer cloth over me. Anyway, Jordan, talk about.
Like I said before, it's more vanity driven. Damon, just following up on what you just said, I do feel like that episode has made me realize that, yeah, I can talk about my body issues and my approach to body, and I don't have to feel like I need to veil, what I, how I experience my body because, out of consideration for someone else who may think that I shouldn't have agency to talk about it. I just said a whole bunch of words.
No, I agree.
No, they
but
made-
like,
they
why
made sense.
why shouldn't you be able to?
But that was my approach before.
Yes.
It's just, you walk into a room and you're just like, oh wait, no, I can't talk about feeling less than confident right now, because what is this person, going to think about me if they look at me and think that I have all the reasons in the world to be confident? And, and I would prioritize that person's reaction to my experience with my body over being more just honest about how I feel. So I'm being honest right now. It's about 80-20, 80% vanity, 20%.
We out of the 5. We got 4 out of 5, Chuck.
We about 80-20 for the reasons why I go. I mean, the truth is, like, when I talk to my physician, I'm healthy. When I've, had an assessment at the gym, they tell me that my body mass index is where it needs to be for my height and my age. So, like, it's not really
body mass index system, that's a system, too, is what we learned.
Well, yes. Yep. Yeah. But
I mean, it is.
It is. But, I just feel like because of that, like, where I'd spend most of my thought and energy is creating the aesthetic that I want through, working out and eating well.
Yeah.
And the reason why I give it 80-20 is because I do feel like there is a 20% health reason why I do it. I do feel better just mentally going to the gym. I feel like I'm more productive. I feel like I'm more happy. I feel like I'm accomplishing things. I feel like I'm always in a better place when I'm at the gym. Like,
yeah.
But it's still just 20%. And yeah, I
Okay.
80-20.
Well,
Tony.
So like Jordan, I want to feel like I'm 100% that bitch, every day too. So when it comes to health versus vanity, a lot of it is vanity. But there's a portion of it that is like, I do, like Jordan's saying, when you go to the gym, I think we can all agree, like when you're working out, when you're eating a little bit healthier, you feel lighter. You can actually focus on your work or whatever you have to do for the day. You feel more productive. You feel like you have more energy. Like, I love when we text each other and we're like, bitch, I feel amazing today. And that all of those things play a part of it. It's not just because you've been laying on your ass and you haven't worked out and you've been eating trash. You've actually, like, you've been to the gym. You maybe have, instead of that burger, maybe you did have a salad, and that contributes to
I'm sorry.
What's funny?
I don't know.
Listen,
but yeah.
And maybe it's about choices, right? Like, it's all about choices. But the vanity is important, but health, that doesn't mean
To
health.
you.
That doesn't mean health isn't. Listen, if you don't care about vanity, that you're right. It is to me, and to you.
Yeah.
Bitch. Damon, what about you? And don't come in here with these lies about health.
No. Actually,
Okay.
I have actually a very
Interesting answer.
Interesting answer.
Okay.
Neither.
All right.
No. Seriously. So I've been working out consistently since like maybe October, November. And my motivation behind it had actually been grief. So my friend Victoria Fortune, she also lost her father to cancer maybe a year and a half before my father passed away. And she, as a way of dealing with her grief, started working out. She started running. She's a part of like the Nike Run Club. And because if anybody knows her, Victoria Fortune, she's like now coordinated 55 fundraisers.
This girl is
she's like rebuilding the Empire State Building. All types of things.
Literally.
But literally,
I am nothing compared to Miss Fortune.
The three of us combined. But I remember, because she documents a lot of it on her social media, and I remember following it and being in a dark place. I was like, okay, maybe let me try this. And also a friend of mine was just like, hey, he's worked out for years, and he was just like, I use my workout and my time in the gym as like almost meditation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I started to work out, and you know what, it is kind of like that, because I'm spending an hour, 2 hours lifting shit, not trying to drop heavy things on my foot, child.
Ooh.
So like I can't
picking stuff up, putting it back down.
picking stuff up, putting it down. So I can't think about that much. And for me, at a time when I was kind of overcome with sadness and still a lot of times around my father passing, it was an opportunity for me to do something maybe as distraction, if we want to call it that, but something that was also feeding into me. And like, yes, like my body has toned up and things as a result of it, but I think that was more so the byproduct of me trying to deal with something new in my life in a way that I had seen people deal with something positive, and I think that it's helped me in a way.
Well, that's still health, that's mental health.
Right, because working out, people do use it as an outlet.
Yes.
To burn off steam and all sorts of
to take
stuff.
your mind off of things, to get it to stop racing, to focus on the task in front of you, because that's all you can think about.
Right.
So do we feel like in talking about this that people who are not, quote, fat have a privilege that they need to acknowledge in conversations around body image? And I think, Tony, maybe we start in your direction this time.
So there's a lot of ways you can go with this, but I'm going to say that as with privilege of all kinds, if you're someone who's interested in just being a better, more aware, more mindful human being, then yes. Like, so to an extent, I think it's important to acknowledge the privilege you have. If in mixed company, if you're having a conversation with like your Judies, that's one thing. Like when I sit and talk with you girls, we have a whole different conversation, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the things that I know about myself that I know put me in a different bracket, to use that as a, analogy or whatever. So yeah, acknowledging privilege is always important. Doesn't mean you always have to, though.
Jordan?
Yes. And
no, yes.
and I want to address this because
yes, what?
The question was, do like non-fat people need to address their privilege?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, what's the yes for? Okay, yes.
Absolutely. I think that, a very common piece of feedback that we got from this is that we ignored the stigma associated with being skinny or not having the ideal body, which at this moment for gay men is more like, sculpted, muscled, that sort of look. And I think that we can all admit that everyone has body issues, right? But I can confidently say that no one that I know, and you guys can chime in, no one that I know aspires to be fat.
I don't know anyone who's aspiring to be fat.
So I say that because I know that body image issues, they come in all shapes and sizes, but I think that fatness by far experiences the most systemic oppression. And I think that even if you do have body image issues with being skinny, it doesn't negate the fact that there are complete and entire industries that celebrate and uphold skinniness as a gold standard of beauty. And I think that acknowledging that while you may not be the most confident as in your skinny body, as a skinny person, that maybe someone else is dealing with more societal backlash from the way their body looks. And I think that that's what I wanted to, that's why I felt like, I was kind of bothered with the feedback and, as a result, bothered by the fact that we didn't address it in the very first episode that we did that. But yeah, I think that if I had to sit here and say like what deserves the most urgent attention, I would say that it's fat phobia.
But how many people do we know that will say like, well, if you're fat, like you could do something about that. Like that's their fault. There are so many people that have that opinion and no, it's not popular, but yes, it is the thought process. People are like, well, if I'm skinny, like, well, on the other hand, there are people that say that if they're skinny, it's hard to gain weight, but you can't tell that to someone who's fat because it's giving, girl, it's not the same. But I know a lot of people who think that people who are fat, they can do something about that and change their situation in terms of working out, in terms of diet, but there's so much more that's involved with the conversation that I think people are just turning a blind eye to, and that's why the conversation's important. Damon, what are your thoughts on acknowledging privilege?
I say no. And I say no because I think that it leads back into my initial point of conflating ideas and approaching conversations without nuance. I think when we talk about fat phobia, it is something that is both personal and environmental. And I think when we talk about body image, it is purely personal. And I think that the way someone views themselves and how they, whatever goals they have or do not have for themselves, should not be impacted by what is going on with other people. And that's purely what I mean. Like, I'm not dismissing that fat phobia is some shit that's fucked up and like the world was built in a way that shames fat people. I acknowledge that, yes. But I think that the individual experience you have in the way that you view yourself, your own insecurities, have nothing to do with anybody else. And I think that I don't need to acknowledge anything about what someone else is going through in relation to my personal relationship. If we're talking about the world and how it exists and what how other people view me without knowing shit about how I view myself, sure, that's a part of that discussion. But I don't think those two things collide in a way that is so easily conflated. That's how I feel.
I'm curious to know though, because our guest, and I think this is where he may have or may not have stepped in a little bit of like doo-doo, is when he started to compare and draw parallels between like systemic racism and like systems, and he drew the parallels to how there are systems built that oppress people who are not able-bodied. And when it comes to privilege, I'm like, well, talking about the racism conversation, I'm just making an example here, is that we want white people to talk about their privilege, and it's important for them to do so. But as it relates to this conversation in body image, is it not important for people who are more able-bodied, who are more deemed by society as more desirable, to acknowledge that?
And who have more privilege.
And who have more privilege, right.
Again, I think it's conflating different things. I think that, yes, if you are a thin person or if you are a white person, if we are having a discussion about how society views black people or views fat people, then yes, there is a level of privilege you have in that conversation. If we are purely talking about body image, which I think is personal and about someone's lived experience, in the same way that if we are talking about a poor white person from the sticks and their lived experience, I don't think we need to dismiss or diminish the positive or negative aspects of that person's experience because of something else. Like I said this, I don't know, maybe in the first season, a friend of mine in high school was just like, you can never tell someone else what their worst is. When you're talking about someone's individual lived experience, I think that is what you are purely assessing. And I think that, I don't know, and in some ways, I think as a society, we've gotten so wrapped up in viewing people as statistics or as we like play the oppression Olympics, and we're always trying to prove who has it worse and all these things. Where it's just like, yes, when we're talking about the larger system, those things are absolutely in place. But if we are talking about someone's individual lived experience, to dismiss or diminish what they themselves are living and going through, I think is where we step into doo-doo, as Tony would say.
I feel like we made a solid point in the last episode to say that skinny shaming happens. You know, body shaming happens. I think that what I'm reacting to is people saying that they feel like their body issues as being a skinny person or skinny shaming deserves the same level of attention and urgency as fat phobia. So if I had to and I know that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to figure out what is the nuance? What are we actually talking about? Are we talking about people's own perceptions of their own body and their own relationship with their own body versus how society treats them? But when I did the entire episode, I was thinking about society the entire time. And I felt like in some of the feedback, people were talking about society too. Like, I get shamed too. And I still feel the same way. It's not the same.
I think that though, imagine if you had just said that to someone who was very thin and bulimic, or someone who was very thin and anorexic. What would their response be to you saying something like that to them?
My question about that, and this may not be the most sensitive thing, but correct me if I'm wrong, but how often is bulimia and anorexia like as a result of fat phobia?
I don't know what the question. I don't understand your question.
How many people are bulimic and anorexic to avoid being fat?
It's not always that. Bulimia and anorexia are about like.
Well, it's nuanced.
It is. It's not just about being fat.
Right. Like I admit that I'm not as well read.
Yeah. No. It's
topic,
not just.
But that would be my question.
It's not just people saying, "Oh, I don't want to be fat, so therefore I'm going to do this." It's about it's harming yourself in a way because you're afraid of shit that's going on in your life. It's much more complex. It's much more complex than saying you just want to be fat.
A glimpse of that with The Crown with Lady Di, who because of all the stress she was under, she was bulimic, and she was like forcing herself to throw up and stuff. But it wasn't because she didn't want to be fat. It was
like I'm gorging because like I want to give myself something, and then like I feel shame, and I have to like get rid of it.
Right. It was a whole.
It's not just people who don't want to be fat, so therefore now they've developed an eating disorder. Like those are health concerns. So what I'm saying is that in allowing a lot of deference to the experiences of people dealing with a system in this society of fat phobia, I think that it is very important that we recognize the individual experiences of human beings still. Yeah. And that's the thing. I just think that we sometimes get so wrapped up in like the system and society, but at the end of the day, we're all just one person out of 7 billion.
Oh God!
And like you only have control of your own little universe, and I think that your little universe can get real fucked up without and have nothing to do with the external factors of like what's going on. So I just think that in doing this again, it's important to recognize that, to honor that individual human experience while still acknowledging that yes, there are collective rights and wrongs that happen.
Whew, well, all right now, girl.
I lost my
girl.
I mean, I had a question, but I know we're running.
What's your question, child?
So,
word on the street.
Y'all remember back in the day, right, where I had a colleague who was more senior, who was a white man, who looked at me dead in my eyes and was just like, Jordan, you don't understand what I have to go through as a middle-aged white man that lives in the suburbs. The entire country think that I'm the reason why everything is wrong. And I was looking at him like, bitch, I'm black and gay and also don't live in the suburbs. And I guess in that moment, I had a decision to make. Like, am I like, this is very real. He's obviously experiencing something. I'm letting him say it. But there was a part of me that was just like, know your audience. Why are you talking to me about this? And I wonder, are there any comparisons with this topic where the person who has more privilege should be mindful of how they're talking to someone who may be experiencing more or worse?
Different.
Right. I think reading the room is important. Like, read the room, know your audience. That's at the crux of what you're saying there. And I can agree with that. Like, depending on who you're talking to will inform the conversation that you have.
No, that's not something I'm going to argue with.
Cool.
So, listener feedback. This was a quote we got the last time we did this. Read it very quickly, and we're going to respond a bit.
Okay.
So someone said, it's interesting how conversations on fat phobia are often situated in from a fat versus skinny lens, when in reality, it's skinny. When in reality, it isn't skinny that's sought, but rather toned and sculpted. Check the IG pages promoting Black gay representation and tell me how many of them are skinny. They're tall, they're toned. The conversation is not as binary as skinny and fat. Do we agree? What are your thoughts on that? Tony, let's start with you.
I think that points were made. Yes, whenever we do have these conversations, it is always a lens of fat versus skinny. And yes, in reality, I don't want to be skinny. I think that I want to be toned and sculpted. And like that's when I talk about vanity, I'm not talking about like, oh, I want
What's
to be
that?
like this skinny bitch. Like that's my skinny like white girl. Like
If a skinny bitch
all I
sound.
had for lunch was half a grape. You know, I'm a flu. You know, a stomach flu away from my goal weight.
Everybody be eating themselves
Like
at work.
I think that there's that's a good point. Like when society does deem the toned and the sculpted, in the LGBTQ and just in general as desirable versus like skinny, but it does often get boxed into fat versus skinny. So okay, I see you, listener.
Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree. I guess if there was things that we would change about the first episode, I probably would.
She said it was perfect.
No, because now he's like, the way he's even saying it, okay, I guess. I mean, maybe it wasn't a 5 out of 5, like maybe a 4.9.
Okay, it was definitely an A+, but maybe just not a perfect score. But no, I mean, I definitely agree with that for sure. Like on those, like, you know, black gay, what would you call that? Black gay men.
Like on Instagram?
Yeah, like
Like
they
those?
all are
Yeah.
like, you know, like
It's
ripped.
giving muscles.
Right.
It's giving.
It's giving abs, definition, like
Yeah.
biceps, chest, all of that. So I definitely agree. The only time that I really see like skinny bodies celebrated are on the more like fashion Instagrams, you know, put them in a little high-waisted pant or something like that. You know,
I
you
wasted Gino right now.
I know. We know what you're going for. But yeah, I mean, I agree. The conversation does have a lot more texture, and I hope that this conversation has sort of. I mean, I have no clue how this is going to sound when we listen back to it.
Don't matter.
Cancel surface level.
Don't matter.
But I hope that this added a little bit more texture to the conversation, and that we were able to kind of encompass more than what we cover in the first episode. But I agree.
They're gonna be like, nope, you missed the mark.
Probably.
Nobody's ever had
Well, there
to.
won't be a part 3, so
Right.
this is what you get. Tune in the sound off.
Right, that actually it's gonna be part 4.
Oh, Lord.
I don't have anything to add to that. So,
Period.
negative body image is largely shaped by 2 factors: external environment and personal insecurity.
Yeah.
We can only control the latter. So let's end on something positive, like we always try and do. So what are you doing to impact personal insecurities that you have around your body, Jordan?
This is supposed to be inspiring?
Yeah. What are you doing to make yourself feel good about what you got, girl?
Going to the gym more. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah. Like I know what my goal is, and I know like I'm going to, you know, go to the gym and earn my confidence.
Earn that confidence.
I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer. Maybe y'all can end on the inspirational note, but I'm going to the gym to you know, take care of my insecurities.
Get them old bones together.
Yes.
I guess that's what you have to do. Like, for me, it's loving more of myself and trying. We're our own biggest critics, and so if I can,
Your own biggest cheerleader, child.
some of us are our own biggest cheerleaders. Some of us don't know how to do that, but I think it's important to be your own biggest
By
cheerleader.
us, I'm a group of 3, not the people outside of this who can cancel surface level.
But I try not to be too hard on myself and give myself a little bit more grace and do the things like if I have a problem with any aspect of my image, the responsibility is in my hands. I'm not going to sit and sulk and do, you know, woe is me. I'm going to go out there and change the situation just like I would do with anything else. And so I implore you all out there who might have insecurities to, you know, consider that as an option, that you have the choice and the power to go and be able to change your circumstance.
I got the power.
Jesus crazy.
So, you know, that was a surface level read.
I've been taking more nudes.
Oh, hold on now.
And because honestly, I used to
Wait a minute, we
hate
don't put those
looking-
in the stories.
No, they just but
For the OnlyFans, we can make some money off of
Right.
this. Pay for the damn podcast.
But in real life, I used to like hate how I looked nude, and like I was just like, yeah, this ain't right. And I'm just trying to like celebrate me, little old me in my home alone sometimes. And you know, there's nothing. I've learned a little coconut oil and sunlight can't fix in a photo. So
Right now.
that's all I got to say.
We love that.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have this week. Let us know your questions and comments on Instagram at Surface Level Podcast or on our official website, surfacelevelpodcast.com. And you can watch our responses to your feedback in our video series, Surface Level Sound Off, on Instagram and YouTube. And if you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. And remember, stay curious.